Hello, you beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Integration Station. I'm naturally Ashley, your host, and I've got a couple of really special guests here, Monica and Kendall. They're joining us today, and they're going to talk to us about their psychedelic retreats, some of the other tools that they're using and integrating into these retreats and for the integration process, as well as some scholarships and different opportunities that they've created so a lot of other people can tap into the opportunity of working with the medicine, even if they can't exactly afford the really high quality retreats that they're offering. So without further ado, I'll just pass off to you guys. You can share a little bit more about what brought you to this space of psychedelics and what you're doing now.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for having us in your show. We're excited to speak about our life's work and where we're heading. And we started walking the psychedelic path through yoga, and we realized how much of the psychedelic environment and the non-ordinary states of consciousness can be accessed through yoga and meditation practices. And then
it's set and setting, right? Your mindset's such a big part of it. And so in the yoga, we really address the physical part of the body and the mindset and the energetics behind it. And so understanding the tools that we use in that space, you can help traverse the space of psychedelics.
And as we started walking more of the philosophical part and bringing it into our daily practices and our daily life, we offer the teachings within our studio. We used to have a yoga studio in Charlottesville, in Virginia, and we, through the ability to hold classes in space, we introduce psychedelic breath work to the community. We introduce yoga nidra as part of a regular modality within our studio, not just the asana and the rigor of the physical movement. And we branched out. We realized that people were really thirsty for the medicine, and we found ourselves talking a lot about the psychedelic medicine. And people were asking, how do we go about this? I'm like, well, we have to kind of like be, above, I would say underwater, but I'm from Mexico, so I tend to use different translations, but you know what I mean? So we want to be able to bring this and promote it and be legal.
And educate people about it, because it seems like things are starting to move faster and faster and faster, and there's not enough education. We still think all of like with ketamine, you have all these ketamine clinics that pop up, and it's $600 or $800 a visit, but you go in, you sit down, there's no guide, there's nobody to help you transition, and just out. It's that pill mentality. And we believe, and from what we've seen and our own experiences, like having a guide and somebody carry through this experience and how you integrate it afterwards is such a big thing. And that's where all the work that we've done through yoga and our 200 and 300 hour teacher trainings that we offer helps traverse that space. And we really want to focus on bringing down the barrier of entry for people so they have access to the medicine, and also focusing on being guides for people to help them integrate it in your life. Because in yoga, especially in this Western culture, as we kind of turn things around on its head, you see all these classes and people are doing handstands and all these movements and everything. And it's not the biggest part. In yoga, the 8-limb path that we study, the asana is only one tiny part of it, right? And in the beginning, it was just seated meditation. It wasn't even all these movements. And the movement's only been around 150 years, which in like accounting, if you would look at it, would be non-material to the 6,000 years of philosophy that's been around. And just because you can do a handstand doesn't mean you're not an asshole, right? And just because you do psychedelics, if you don't integrate them into your life, there's no, so what? Then what? Right. Yeah. And so we want to focus on the integrations and the guide work and bring where it came from back and the truth to it back.
And we also believe that the psychology should be accessed freely. And we believe that the communities that need that access, they shouldn't have a barrier because they can't afford it. And the purpose of our OMK Mindheart Creative is to promote the retreats where we can offer the medicine in a retreat style with integration, but also to create, through the Path of Wholeness Foundation, create micro communities that are they have competencies to integrate people that may be disenfranchised at the moment. Sometimes the medicine gets us in a state where we're not grounded back in our bodies, and the ability to have this micro communities that gives you that access back into the body so that you can be functional again in this world that, you know, we're moving about. And so merging again the ability to connect to ourselves and then to connect to a community. That is, to us, is such an important part of the work as well, that we cultivate connection with other humans, and that we bring the lessons provided by the medicine into the community that we're serving. And so that's one of the biggest pieces that we want to bring with what we're creating.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's so much here. And, you know, it's one of the reasons why I was so excited to have you guys on, is you're putting such an emphasis on the setting, your mindset, your environment, you know, the guidance through the ceremony, the experience, that rebirth, and then the integration so that they can actually sustain the results. Because it's like, you know, a Tony Robbins conference, you know, everybody's like all psyched up on the weekend, and then they go back to the regular life and they're like, oh, wait, you know, here comes all the old patterns sinking in. And
you know, that's such a good point, because, you know, we can take this medicine, we can go on these journeys, we can go practice yoga, we can meditate, we have all these tools, but what's the environment that you created for yourself, right? And so if you step back into that environment, yeah, maybe you can hold on to that mindset just for a little bit, but eventually the environment's going to pull you back down unless you change your environment or do something different. And it's teaching people and coaching people is like, hey, if this is where you are and this is where you want to go, and this is the situation you're in, it's like, how do we cultivate change here with the knowledge that you have now, right? Because if we can't change our environments, it's just going to pull us back to where we were.
I think that's one of the greatest things about the psychedelic experience too, is that it can show us how to do the work in our real life. It's like, now you've had that experience a little bit, so you can make it, or you know what it's supposed to feel like or look like when you got it in your real life, you know, almost like a deja vu moment. You know, you're on the right track because you've had that experience. Or like, why when you go like real deep into meditation on psychedelics, and then you're able to hit those levels in yoga and like these other types of breath work and meditation. So yeah, I really love that. And it's getting brought into the real world. You know, it's like bringing the magic back to reality. You know, it's something that was really missing, I think. And maybe why, you know, without the magic, a lot of people are getting mental health issues and different things too. So
We have our program, the 200-hour psychedelic yoga studies program. And to your point, Ashley, about the experience that we have in the psychedelic environment is a layer that, you know, is perceived very palpable when we're there. However, when we go back into our daily practices, when we're cooking, when we're doing all this other tasks that are very mundane, and, you know, and the perception that we have of them, they're not. Like, we literally can find the magic with those moments that feel very mundane and the tasks that we have to do as humans. And how do we connect that magic back to our daily lives? How do we become curious and have this, you know, white light wonder, like, wow, I'm cooking, like, this is amazing. Or I'm doing chores, or I'm doing all these things that we may feel pull us down because they're necessary for part of our living. But the magic, the cross, that's what the value that the program brings. You know, the worlds merge, the worlds connect, and this is how they connect.
Yeah, and absolutely appreciate that. And I can see like the work that you're doing, how passionate you are about it, and that, you know, like I can see the light just because you've seen that transformation in other people. You can just tell in hearing you guys speak. So I'm curious to hear more about the type of yoga you're doing, because, you know, Kundalini yoga has been a really big asset in my own life, and we've had other people come on and talk about that. But could you share the types of yoga that you're doing and what makes it unique and special and helpful in the psychedelic experience?
All the above yoga?
Yoga. Well, part of the asana experience is not just moving our bones and our muscles. and understanding that the web of connective tissue, the fascia that runs through our bodies and that hold the meridians and the energy points, and very much in like Chinese medicine, this energy points can be blocked by, life, by our thoughts, by our actions, by our words. And as we begin to move and we start to peel the onion through the asana that's connected in a methodology that is simple to complex, in a methodology that asks questions about your experience you're having, and to dig deeper within your own psyche and subconscious as to what is coming to the surface as you're moving through this movement. And the physicality of it is that as we start to open the envelope of the body, the bones and the fascia specifically, then we can see our nervous system in real time smoothing out. Our nervous system and the all the nerves that run through our bones and our muscles, they get also shrink down by tension. And we can experience how the nervous system opens up. And then that experience, there's psychedelic overlap right there. But sometimes we can't perceive it because we're kind of blocked by being human.
The go more in the style that we teach. It's kind of, if you would, not to bring religion into this, but if you looked at all the different religions and took like the truth out of all of it and look at all the different lineages of yoga and where they've come from through the years, and trying just to pick all the truth pieces out of it and take the human part and leave that part behind. That's kind of where we teach from. And then looking at tradition, like what's really true now and what's not. Have you heard the story about the Christmas ham?
No, please share.
All right. So, yoga is this old thing, and the story came up about this Christmas ham. And so the mom's making the ham, the daughter comes in the kitchen. She's like, "Hey, why do you cut the corner of the ham off?" And the mom's like, "I don't know. We just did that because that's what my mom did." And so luckily the grandmother was alive, and they went to the grandmother and they asked the grandmother, like, "Hey, why do you guys cut the corner off the ham?" And the grandmother's like, "I don't know. That's what my mom did." And the great grandmother was still alive. And so they all go to the great grandmother and they ask the great grandmother, like, why did you cut the corner off the ham, Nana? And she's like, "Well, when I grew up at that time, the ovens were so small. So for the ham to fit in the oven, we had to cut the corner of the ham off. So for 3 generations, everybody's cutting the corner of the ham off, not knowing why." Right. And so we look at the physical part of the practice, like, is this movement in the body with the science that we know now, is it beneficial? And if we move our legs a little farther apart, if we change the structure of the posture a little bit to fit the human being that's in it, so they get the feeling of being in posture and they feel accomplished and not focus on trying to create a pretzel of ourselves, that's a place that we teach from, because we're all different, right? Everybody's psychedelic journey is going to be different, and it's going to be intimate to them. Everybody in a posture, it's going to be different because their bones are shaped differently. What they've done in their life, their muscles, the tension in them is going to be different because of the jobs they have.
Their DNA.
And so we look at and teach from a place to make the practice unique to that person and to make it from simple to complex. And so we open the sleeve of the body with a smaller twist, a bigger twist, a bigger twist. So when you get to the pinnacle posture in that part of class, the sleeve of the body, the muscles of the body have been opened so you can hit your greatest expression of it. And we also teach not just on a physical level, but on a energetic level and a spiritual level, because when you affect one, you affect the other. So when you open up the body, you're also opening up the mind, right? When you open up the mind, you're also doing something in the body. And so energy affects form, which affects perspective. And teaching a class with a theme and making it the movements congruent with the theme and the energy that you're creating in class and bringing all that together.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful form of alchemy, right? Like body, mind, and soul, the trifecta. I'm curious if we can dive a little bit more into the work you guys are doing with DNA, since it was mentioned here, and the ancestral work. What's that look like, and how do you get into that?
So this actually teaching came from my dad's passing in working with the medicine and understanding how I carry my father's legacy, and it's encoded within my DNA. It's encoded his father's legacy, your father's legacy, everybody, like all the lineage behind us that we've had. And we think we're unique in our experience, but the reality is that we are not. We're all having this human experience. But if we look down to where we came from, our ancestry, what we ate, how did we develop in our little familial lineage, and what were the thoughts process, what were the customs, that information is in our DNA. And as we change and we're able to connect with that lineage and see what the past was like, then we can perhaps look at our subconscious and unconscious biases, our own, that part of us that can't see it past the mirror behind us. And perhaps we can uncover it. And with that information, then becomes that is information. What are you going to do with it? How is this information going to help you navigate the world in a way that is more skillful, and that in a way that promotes compassion and kindness? Because those are teachable tools. But unless we navigate, we see ourselves with that DNA. How do we speak to each other?
And I don't think we realize to the extent that we carry, as human beings, we evolved because stuff was passed down through our DNA, right? Our fears, everything is, passed down. So it keeps our species moving along. And a great example of that is even with our kids, because I hate to admit it, and deathly scared of spiders.
In a TV show. I
don't want to hurt them. I just can't see them or protect myself. And I don't want to get bit by a black widow or a brown recluse or anything like that. And however, when my daughter was born, it was like one thing I was never going to let her see that side, right? I didn't want her to learn from me that spiders are scary, because they're not. It's something that's just innate in me and it's specific to me. And same thing with Monica. She has, when she was growing up, she had a fear of crabs. And so we protected both our kids from this. But the oldest one, what is she scared of? Spiders. Never saw me being scared of spider. Like, I grit my teeth, and every time she saw one, I would get it out of the way and like cry inside as I'm picking this thing up. And same thing when the little one was 5 years old. We're on the beach. She was in her 200-hour teacher training, and we were camping in Virginia Beach, and we're riding the bikes down the path. And I'll never forget it. I have my oldest daughter in front of me, my youngest behind me, and I hear the youngest like this blood curdling scream, like, "Oh my gosh, did she get hit by a car?" And I turned around, and she'd hopped off her bicycle, and there was a crab, and she was frozen. She couldn't move. And I'm like, "Honey, it's just a crab." And I didn't know about Monica's experience at this point. And so I was like, "Just walk towards the crab." And she's like, no. And she's like screaming. I'm like, "Look, just walk." And I walk, and the crab backs up. And I'm like, "See, there's like nothing to be afraid of." And she couldn't deal with it. And I had to pick her bike up, my bike, carry us all back to the tent. But it was a perfect example, because she never saw Monica being scared of a crab. She never saw me. She never saw her older sister, and her older sister never saw any of us be scared of a spider. And we're combined families, so we came from previous relationships. So the DNA in both kids are a little bit different, and they still have those experiences, right? And that's passed down through the DNA, not because it's something they learned or they saw.
And so where do those fears come from? And can we dance with the fear? And can we see how it's such a teaching tool in our current experience, and how we're going to use that fear to kind of help and unravel that constraint that we've created around that fear that we want to protect? How do we open it so that it can catalyze into something else?
And see if it's relevant now. Is it still true?
This is bringing up so much for me, you guys. Like, you have no idea. I'm thinking, on my mom's side, there's like being Native American, there's a lot of like addiction and traumas. A lot of the women didn't live very long. It was like addiction would take them out very young in their 30s. And, my mom was able to overcome that. And even though she's had her struggles, it's like, for me, it was even a little bit easier. Like, people look at me and they're like, "Oh, you made it through that fast and easy." It's like, there was still a struggle, there's like, the stuff was real. But yeah, in comparison, when you're looking at the line, you're like, you know, and there's some stuff in there. Those women, like, I never thought I'd be a author or write books or like anything. I definitely, that was not a part of the plan for me. But I learned that the women who had passed, that they all did like to write and were artistic and all these things. And my mom, she had this dream, like even at like as far long back as I can remember her, she was writing, and she'd find people who would draw pictures for what she was doing. And then like I published, and I'm like, oh, okay, that was like, you know, karmic something, like that. It was something else, like something outside of me that manifested that the way that it did. And it was encouragement from different, you know, people coming together at specific times in my life to manifest it. And it was out of my control, that's for sure.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm grateful for those things. And I love that. I'm sure anybody who's listening to this can see that on one side of their family or another, whether it's the dad side, the mom side, or with your own children too.
Yes, from where I come in Mexico, my both sides of the family, they overcame poverty, and we made a comfortable life, and I grew up in a very comfortable place, and with values that has shifted from being Mexican to embracing more of an American way of thinking. And it's always towards progress. And what is progress anyways? And as I start to uncover the parts of myself that I had kind of covered with this, you must achieve, you must be an accountant, and I'm not putting accountancy down by any means, but I was not embracing the lineage that is passed down. Like women in my family, they're very strong. Women in my family lean into medicines, plant medicine. That was completely shut down from my experience, right? It's like, you can't touch that. That is curandera. You're not a curandera. You're an accountant, right? But it's like, I can't deny this. This is part of who I am. It's within me, and it wants to come out, and it's screaming to come out. How do I work with it?
Yeah. And that's like the thing. If that voice is great, I think that's what leads to a lot of the mental health stuff anyway. It's like, we're not listening to those voices, and then everything else becomes too overwhelming, because all of our willpower goes to trying to quiet that voice that just wants to scream inside of ourselves. And then next thing you know, there's an addiction or something else that can try to quiet it or try to ease the pain inside from the resistance. And it's like, if we can just stop and, come back to some of these tools, like the breath work, the meditation, these simple things, like we can live without food for, 40 days. We can live without water for, a week or so. We cannot live without our breath for more than a couple minutes. Like, and that's pushing it for most people. So like, coming back to those basics really helps us to listen to that voice and even allow it to not only be heard, but to get a little bit louder so that we can actually take action, give it purpose, because that's what it wants. It's like a friend of mine, Judy, she works with cacao, which is a very subtle medicine. Like, not a lot of people feel the power of it unless they had the experience of sitting in ceremony. And one thing that she always says is that the spirits are always around us, just waiting for us to ask a question and use that source. But it's not until you can actually learn the subtleties and listen to that voice and allow yourself to connect with what other energies are around. It takes some practice with these other, tools that seem very simple. It seems like, there's no way that just like subtle, gentle movements or, aligning with a breath, that it can make such a big difference to allow that bit of freedom, allow yourself to express what's inside.
That's such a good point. I think as human beings, the way that we're raised, we learn to gaslight ourselves. We learn to listen more to everything that's out here instead of trusting everything that's, innate inside of us. And so you're always, at least, I don't know with everybody else, I can speak, solely for myself, battling, like, do I listen to this? Or do I listen to what I'm being told out here? Which one's truth? And then you get caught in this seeking pattern, trying to understand the truth, which eventually always leads you back here, The Alchemist. If you ever read that book, such a good book. But it leads you right back home, right? And you go through all these experiences just to learn to understand yourself better. So I think we get to the point where we trust ourselves. and we love ourselves. But it's only in going through this whole process of seeking that you get nothing out of it, that you finally turn back inwards on yourself and you start to understand yourself and learn to trust yourself and put the seeking down. There was this song that we listened to the other day with a guy who wrote Midnight Gospel, and it was East Village who did it, but he was like talking through the song. He was just talking about psychedelics and life, and it had such a good point to it, because we chase all these things, but then what? If the Buddha shows up and Jesus rides in on a lion and you finally have that enlightened moment, now what? Right? You're still going to face all the same things that you face every day in life. And he goes on to a part, he's like, okay, he's like, you have that magic moment happen, everything happens, but then you're flying on a UFO through outer space and you go to use the bathroom and some asshole pisses on the seat and you get upset. And then what? Right? And we're always seeking and chasing to get something outside of ourselves, when in the end, it's us. We complete ourselves, which sounds corny, but it's the truth. And it's learning to trust ourselves more than trusting everything outside of us more.
My mentor, Dr. Dan Engel, he talked a lot about that, like tapping into Christ consciousness. It's something that, we really do seek to do, is that like divinity inside of ourselves and things. And it can become a complex for some, just like ego can become a complex for some. No matter how many psychedelics you do, if you're not doing that work, then it can, go the opposite way. And I wasn't like really feeding into it, because when I hear like Christ consciousness, like I automatically get triggered by religion and like all this kind of stuff, right? And but I had my own experience with Bufo this year. I worked with it 3 times, and it was my 3rd time going in. It was so profound. And even as a woman, even with my resistance about the Catholic religion, like I literally was Jesus on the cross, so profound, everything went blurry. I knew, like, I could look down at my hands and I saw the blood, and I knew that I couldn't move. I was like, I knew that there should be pain, but there was no pain. So I questioned inside myself, like, where's the pain? And I felt electromagnetic energy, like Reiki energy, like go through my whole body into my heart. And it was like, if you have heart, then there is no pain. And so I'm like, oh, I got to carry that with me. And then everything went like so blurry, and I looked in the crowd and all the people, there was people that were angry and people that were crying and all these things. But when everything else went blurry, I just seen a mother and a son. And I remember being like, oh, I'm a mother, and oh, and I have a son, and oh, that's like a fractal, that it's always continuing, and that we are like in a sense all one, but also that's where the focus is like in just the nurturing mother like entity for myself, even though I felt like, I don't know, there's a lot, right? It's a psychedelic experience, but I'm still obviously, doing that integration work. I take my time with it, especially those big doses, but there's a lot to like figure out in that. And that, like that Christ moment, like it wasn't what I expected, that was something I never thought would actually come from me because of my resistance. But these medicines, they give it to you like what you need. I don't think I would have understood those simple messages had it not been for that. So I wanted to share it to see if there was anything you guys could pull out of that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Question though, it's like, were you raised in like the Catholic Church growing up?
Yes. So I'm Native American, and I grew up on Crown land right off of the reserve, but I went to Catholic school my whole life, always got in trouble because I questioned everything. Even as a young child, I was kicked out even in kindergarten and things. And if I got in trouble or wasn't trusted alone, I'd go stay with the family that raised my brother, and they went to church every Sunday. If I got in a lot of trouble, then I had to go be with my Aunt Veronica, who was like really into the church, and she'd go for those weekend retreats and things. So like I had trauma from this. Like, it's like, you're bad, you're getting Jesus, like,
Yeah.
But then when I had that experience as Jesus, I realized like I came out of it this summer, and I was like, he was a rebel. Mary Magdalene, she was a rebel. This is just like in this real world. They were just the rebels of their world, and they were persecuted for it. Their family was torn apart from it. I had this different kind of connection and understanding Like, I mean, I still will raise my middle finger to the Roman Catholic Church, but there's a lot of beautiful magic in there too, and there's a lot more history than we ever could have imagined. And Jesus himself, when he was coming into like Mexico and other parts of South America, a lot of the depiction was him as three heads, like the psychedelic Jesus picture. So that's something there too.
Wow.
That's it was still a part of it. These medicines that connect us to that. And maybe it is about allowing that rebel inside of ourselves out too.
I definitely think he was a bit of a rebel. We were both raised in the Catholic Church as well, and Nomadic Patris Filii Spiritus Sancti, and reforming ourselves, I think, ever since, because there's the narrative comes down and it puts a lot of shame and a lot of judgment, and you always hear the story reading the Bibles, not to get super religious, but about Jesus spending time with the sinners and the saints. I mean, not this, but the people who stole things, or they were looked down upon, and as we move through life, and in the life that we're in, it doesn't seem like the church and all the stuff, not pointing at, they honor the same spirit that was behind him at that time. And the narrative that gets passed down, it's more of just this judgment, and like all things are bad and you have to conform to one thing, and
it's a way to control.
And human beings take control of things and they use it for what? Power, right? And so in the Catholic Church, it's like, I mean, we had the privilege of going to Rome and to the Vatican, and just kind of going through the history of it, and it looked like just a bunch of white men sitting in the back manipulating things, all for power, right? And it was so interesting to sit back and look at it and not be a part of it, but just from the outside of it. But there's also many beautiful things in it. It's like, the point behind it is to care for other human beings and to love. And it's kind of like the way we look at our yoga practice, like, oh, this lineage is right. This lineage is right. No, you should do it this way. You should do it this way. You should fucking do it the way that works best for you. And you should live life the way that works best for you and trust yourself to do so. And I think that maybe one person found their enlightened path and they're trying to teach that to somebody else, but you can't control that for that person. You can't make it do it the way you did it. They have to do it the way they do it, and teach them how to find that way from themselves and not mimic the way that everybody else is doing it. And that's the way we kind of look at yoga and life and all of it. We pick the truths out that resonate with us, and we're like, okay, this worked for us, but what does that mean for you? How do you find that truth for yourself? Because it's not going to look the same as it looks for me. Your psychedelic experience is not going to look the same for you as it does for me, because all of your DNA, all of your lineage, all of your stuff, and it's like, intuit what it means for you. And let go of the outside narrative of all the stuff and try to pick the truth out of it.
Yeah, and that's an important part too, like what you said there, of letting it go. A lot of people struggle with that let go, but it's such a part of the balance, because you can't hold on to the good. You can't take action or give purpose to anything good that's working for you if you have all this other clutter around. It is about a process. This is why Mama Nature lets things die. It's so natural to just let the old fall away. And Mama Nature is great at making it look so beautiful and easy, and we can so tap into that.
And letting go of ourselves, letting go of our creation.
Ultimately,
Monica she just went on a journey recently, and that was part of her experience. I'll let her share.
Our studio in Charlottesville was a beautiful container for transformation, and the room itself had been infused with Reiki through many practices, and people's hearts being poured in that room. So I had this vibration that was it was higher vibration, and I found myself within the journey cocoon in that room. And because he was healing me when I step into that room, in whatever capacity, as a student or as a teacher. And as I'm in the room, I feel I'm mourning the room, and it seems simple at the moment. And then I was like, I'm not mourning the room. What is this? And this came about because I allowed anxiety to show me. And I'm like, anxiety, I need you to guide me this moment. And I pulled it from my body where it was holding, and then it kind of pushed me through that to the room. And once I was in the room, I was nude, and I had like a Harry Potter wand, And suddenly I was dancing in the room, but I was creating things and then destroying them simultaneously, and creating and destroying. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And ultimately came about like, you have to let go of yourself. This process is about dying well. And it's about letting your body, your loved ones, your father, your daughter, whenever time comes, you have to be willing. It's hard. And of course, it's like this lesson that we don't want to face, but it's necessary. It's part of life. It's Mother Nature. It's all of these things. And just unwinding it still. Like, it's very recent.
And learning to let go. I think it's the biggest thing. Some of the concepts that we have in the U.S., they're so stupid. Like, we own something, like we own this land and I have a deed to it. Like the land, it was all here way before we were. And like,
and it can be taken away like that.
I know.
Taxes raised too high. Watch that in Colombia. It was the saddest thing.
It's crazy. It's all over power and money. And like, you have to have some type of construct and some way to do things. Yes. But this idea that I own something that was here before I even got here, I just think it's a stupid concept. And so
it'll stay when you're gone.
Right. What happens to it then? Right. It's like my dad has passed on. What lives on is, his DNA in me and what I do and how I carry his life through me and the amazing person that he was. But there's nothing else. It's like the things that you have in life, you don't, and it's said so many times, you don't get to take them with you. It's like we really don't. And so we're taught from such a young age to hold on. I own this. This is mine. Right. And what's so beautiful about the experience that she had, it's like, and as being business owners at one point, you're constantly creating. You're doing, and this as well, social media posts, like you're just this creation machine of doing all this stuff all the time. And sometimes you get caught into the thing like, I own this. This is mine. I created it. And it's learning to let go of all that. Let go of our egos, let go of ourselves so we can see clearer, so we can communicate better, so we can love more, so we can be more compassionate. And that experience you had, I think, is such a testament to it. It's like, create everything you want to create. And the second you create it, let go of it. Oh my gosh, if you're a parent, you probably know this too, because we have a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old. I mean, shit, when they hit their teenage years, you got to let go a little bit. And as they get older, you got to let them be their own person. And, they may came from your DNA, but they're going to express themselves in their own way, not the way you want to express. And I think from our heritage, not as much in mine, but I was allowed to have more free expression of my life and to do things and kind of explore a path. And some people, they don't get that choice. They have to go out and be the accountant, or they have to go to college. They have to follow this path and do all these things. I'm not saying that learning's bad, but what's the information that you choose to learn? What do you choose to put in your body and in your mind? And is it benefiting you? And if we can take that idea of letting go in the beginning, right? That when you create something, you immediately have to let go of it and let it be alive, and then also let it die if that's what's going to happen to it. I think it would create a lot more connection in this world, a lot less suffering for everybody.
Yeah, there was just that kind of acceptance, that it's part of it. We can prepare for anything if we know that it's coming. I like to say all the time that you get to pick your challenges. So when you're making decisions, I like to see what's the pros and cons and which cons can I actually deal with. Even though I know life's going to send me something different, like I want to know that I can at least enjoy myself through those struggles, And so I base my decisions kind of off of understanding the positive and the negative, because there is in everything. And I think psychedelics help with that too, because, you can have a bad trip and be like, okay, what can I pull out of that that's more positive? And yeah, so I don't know where I was really going with that, but
it's interesting that you bring up a bad trip. It's like, is it really bad? You can do a trip in a bad place.
Super uncomfortable.
Right. But
yeah.
A bad trip, it can be an uncomfortable experience. Life can be an uncomfortable experience.
Yes.
And I think sometimes you can glean more from that experience than you can one that's all perfect and happy and you're seeing unicorns and all that stuff, because one, you traverse to the other side of the experience and you're okay. And that's a teacher, right? That's teaching you through your experiences that you're going to be okay. And then when you come out of that bad trip, usually I feel like 10 feet tall and amazing because I got to the other side of it. And
Yes.
being grateful for those experiences as well, because we can't choose life. We can't choose experience. We can choose how we're being in it, but
Yes.
we can't choose all the time the experiences that we're thrown into. We didn't get to choose our skin color. We didn't get to choose the type of bodies we have. We didn't choose the family we're in. We didn't choose the country we grew up in. We were thrown into all those things, but it's what you do with what's done to you, right? What you do and the choices you make from the bad trip, from the life that you have, that's the power, right? Is our choices in that.
Yeah. And it's a big ask when the blinds are on, and to have that concept it's got to unveil itself very slowly, because it has a potentiality to shame people for not realizing that, they can have choice, but they don't realize it unless they know they're suffering.
And that was we actually got into one of our retreats in Oaxaca. One of the students that came with us, we were having that exact conversation, and she bucked up against it because like suffering is a choice, and she's like, no, it's not. It's like people don't choose to be in suffering. And I was like, then we went through the whole argument of it, and what it came down to, it's you have to be aware that you're suffering first, then it's a choice, right?
Yeah.
Unless you've done the psychedelic journey or the life journey where you pull the veil up and you can see, right? Unless you can see your suffering, you can't make a choice out of it or see that you're choosing to stay in it. And so we have to, in everything that we do, whether it's the meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's, the psychedelic journey, whatever method you use to lift that veil, that's where we want to bring people to, so they can see that they do have this choice.
It's like just coming back to that religion piece again, whether it's religion or entrepreneurship or just life or the psychedelic experience, I think we're always seeking or taught and conditioned to either buy our way into heaven or buy our way out of hell. And so that's it. Once we can pull ourselves out of that mindset, that it's not either way, there can be a little bit more acceptance and also more gratitude for the present moment, because it's not actually about either one of those. It's about being present in the moment and just enjoying life, not being in fear that you're either not going to make it and then saboteur yourself, or be in fear that you're, going to be punished or that somebody's going to judge you, like whatever that hell is for you that gets created. And I think those are some of the ways that either like, that negative energy, that negative part of every atom, like kind of creeps up and can start taking more control over the body. But when we can just say, back off, like Kundalini yoga, like that's one that in Kundalini dance that they're doing for the root chakra right now. They're like, back off. It's like, yeah, it's just fun. But, that's like one of the things, if you can get those thoughts out of your mind that you're doing it, no matter how conditioned it is, then, it can bring a little bit more peace to that moment. And I also believe that psychedelics, these, especially the bad trips, are preparing us for how to deal with these real life circumstances a little bit better, with more tools and more understanding that there is this euphoria, this heaven that you can create after you made it through the turmoil or whatever the suffering is. But that pain is like actually still our friend, because it's in pain that the growth happens. It's like why children and animals, when they're growing in those first years, they're, while their digestive system is developing, they're in pain. Like when puppies are growing, they're like stretching in their sleep and they're like, and like next thing you know, they don't go back to their regular size. But, it's in that pain that the real growth happens, and we're doing it consistently. It doesn't matter that science says our brains are developed at 21. We're still constantly growing and changing. And yeah.
And it's such a good point. Pain it's okay. It's a natural part of life, and it's a signal to growth, right? I love stories. Have you heard the story about the lobster?
Possibly. Go for it.
So the story goes, the lobster has its shell, right? And so for a lobster, it starts to grow inside of its shell and it becomes uncomfortable, right? So the first signal is a little bit of pain, right? That's the stimulus to tell the lobster, okay, it's time that you need to grow. You're too big for your shell. So it gets rid of its shell. It goes and hides under some rocks, so it's protected from predators, right? And then it gets a new one, and then it comes back out and it's bigger, right? And so then it starts eating and growing and living, and it starts getting bigger and it gets inside its shell. And it's like, oh shit, I got to let this go again, right? You get uncomfortable. Pain's a signal, discomfort's a signal, right? So I got to let go of my shell. I got to go protect myself. And then I got to come back out with a new one. And so you go through this whole process. And the signal to growth, the stimulus, is being uncomfortable, is being pain. But what do we do, at least in the United States? We go to the doctor, we get an opiate, right? We numb the uncomfortable parts of the cells that we don't want to feel. And what do? We stop growing.
And it's I don't want to put down allopathic medicine either, because they do help people when they're in desperate moments. But to live a whole life with, under depression medication, it's, while you're taking the pill, it's to help you kind of gain tools so that you can get up and move about. But instead, we keep taking that medication until we die, and we never experience the pain of growing. And so,
and just to clarify real quick, the place I speak from is I have like family members that have a deep addiction to opiates. And it's a very nasty thing to see and to watch. And so I just want anybody that's listening, that's the place that I speak from.
And
a lot of our audience knows as well. I experienced that in my own family, and my partner too. He he's done many things to work through that in his own life. So it's been about 6 years, but what we've been working with lately is kratom, because that was one of his tools that he used to come off, and he still feels like a tie to it that is now becoming an issue, but maybe someone we could talk about another time. But there's definitely a lot of listeners that tune in and love us and understand exactly what you're saying about the opiates. It's one of the reasons why I love doing the integration work and things like that too. Thank you.
Very welcome. It's like, how is that legal, and how is psychedelics illegal? Which one's addictive?
And it comes from the psychedelic. It comes like from the poppy. I don't understand. Yeah. I don't understand why they take something that's so natural and where you can use the entire plant. And yeah, there still can be addictive properties and things like that too, if it's overused or not used with intention. But then why take just the parts that you want? The only reason why is to patent it, make money, and they've made a killing. There's been entire wars. Wars make a lot of money. And there's been a lot of wars over this beautiful flower. So. And it's causing a war inside of us and inside of the people and within families and within the body and the planet. It's absolutely a crazy thing how that's rippled out.
Yes. I want to add that, medicine, with either plant medicine or medicine that we need because, we're sick, it's meant to bring us back to some sort of balance, and from that balance so that we can have a better human experience. And just like with psychedelics or with any other medicine that we can find in nature, we have the tendency to also overdo it. And so because we're going back to that idea of the inside and what's there, and then we're grasping at carrots. And are we willing to take the medicine and put it down for a little bit and allow it to do its work, just like other medicines can do the same? Can they rehab us, put us back kind of in pieces so that we can put it down and, continue to do our human work? And so there's balance. So how much do we need to be in balance? And again, that's something that self-discovery can guide us, point us to, like, how much do I need to feel whole and remember that I'm whole already, how much is that?
Yeah, and that's going to be a really bio-individual thing, and it's likely going to change depending on how old the person is, what they're going through at the time, what their set and setting is.
It's like coming back to trusting yourself and your truth, and not like everything that's written out here, and learning to trust yourself more so you can follow your own path. And the truth is, I think we have in the society that we're in, we have this idea that things are very fixed. We even look at our past as being this fixed thing that can't be changed. Yeah, the facts happen, but how we feel about the past is created in this moment, right? And depending on what stimulus is coming in, whether it's good or bad, you're going to frame your past based off, okay, it's all good or it's all bad. And until you get to the point where you learn to master things and master, like, okay, this is what I believe about my past. This is how it really helps me and propel me forward. And since we have this idea that things are so fixed and we want to create this perfect reality, right? It's like you want to go to school, you're taught that you should get an A. If you don't get an A, you're not good, right? Or you're a B person or a C person or an F person, right? And start creating this idea of the self that I have to be this perfect thing in this world. And, one thing my dad taught me and that I love is yeses and nos. They're both information, right? It's like I go over here and I get a yes. Okay, well, I'll keep going down my path until I get a no and I recorrect. And it's not that the no is bad. It's just a wayfinder. It's pointing you in the right direction to your internal compass. But if you can't master all the stuff that you've been through in life and own them and take responsibility for all of them and really start to trust the direction finder, your wayfinder inside of yourself, we get locked in chasing this perfect ideal. And it's like this whole conversation keeps running around to one thing, and it's trusting yourself. It's like you are, in the end, you are the medicine. We can go pay gurus and all these people like thousands and thousands of dollars. And in the end, they can't fix anything about you. They can maybe show you different sides of yourself, but you have to do the work. You have to show up, and you are the medicine. And in the end, the most important thing I think we could teach anyone is to trust themselves.
I love that. And thank you guys for everything today. We're definitely going to have you on again because there's so many of these topics that we didn't even cover. And we could have dug into further too. But while we have a few minutes left here, I'd love to dive into your retreat and your yoga teacher training, your scholarship program, because there's a lot of opportunities here. I know you guys are doing some like really luxury, helpful, like full body, wholesome things. So yeah, please dive in, share, and then of course let everybody know how they can get involved.
So the retreat, we have one space open, and we're offering a scholarship as $12.80. $12.50. He has the numbers, and it's
she's the accountant, and I have the numbers.
And it is a 5-day intensive. We call it an intensive, but it's a retreat where we do serve medicine, specifically psilocybin mushrooms, and but it's actually a 6-week program where we start integrating from now and after the medicine and the experience, which we have. We have rituals like sweat lodge, temazcal, we have gatherings, we have cacao ceremonies. So all of this Mesoamerican traditional experiences. And then we come back home and we integrate virtually, and we have morning yoga, meditations, and then community time, so that the community continues to talk, because they're gonna, I know they're gonna find lifelong friendships when they get to the retreat, and we want to foster this relationships, and so we continue to integrate afterwards. Again,
also,
that retreat,
when you go on a journey, as you know, you integrate that for up to like a year afterwards, and so being able to be with the people that you went on the journey on and be able to integrate and ask questions. Hey, this came up. How does it resonate? And kind of walking through so they can find their own truth in it. Right.
So $12.50 includes everything: food, medicine, beautiful Oaxaca accommodation. So I hope that someone wants to take that spot. And then we'll start our 200-hour psychedelic yoga program at the end of January. And it is an 8-week program. It is hybrid. So anybody anywhere in the world can join the program. We're offering scholarships also because we believe that there should not be an expensive way to learn about ourselves. So it's $575.
It's basically an admin fee just to cover the expenses of where we're having it, the material, all the things.
All the technology. It also includes a registration with Yoga Alliance, so that's already the first year is paid for by the foundation. So we're excited as well.
It's 2 hours worth of work where we volunteer our time and we spend these weekends together. And it's you get your 200-hour RYT certification from Yoga Alliance. I would want to say it's more like a 500-hour training because we packed so much into it.
Reiki 1 attunement.
You learn so much about the yoga, the physical practice and the philosophy, but also we start to navigate the nexus between, yoga and psychedelics and the education behind the psychedelic part and, how to create a set and setting. And also we're learning all about the mind and how the philosophy of yoga helps you traverse life, right? And so when you get into that experience, maybe you're having like an uncomfortable trip, it's like, how do you navigate that with your mind in your life? You get uncomfortable in your experience. How do you navigate that, right? And so we use all of these philosophies and gear them toward the psychedelics, but it's also a traditional 200-hour training all at the same time. So you're getting that and so much more. And we want to be able to break down the barrier with people because they're $3,000 to $5,000 for these trainings, and these trainings changed my life. Right, I came to them because of physical injury in my neck, and I thought I was going to learn how to move my body better, but I was learning how to move my soul and my mind better. And the body part was like 1/8 of everything that you learn, and that's what we want to give back to people because I think stuff like that was passed down freely, through lineages, and now it's like there's this premium put on it. And yes, as a business, we have to make money so we can fund the non-business part of it, and so we have a retail side that functions to fund money into the part that we want to like help people because it changed our lives and we want to give that to other people.
Thank you so much. Is there anything you wanted to add, Monica?
No, he took it all.
So have a kick-ass new year.
Pardon?
Have a kick-ass new year.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, thank you so much, you guys. We're definitely gonna have you back, and I'm gonna send you a thank you in this video and everything. I'll put it out on Psychonauts, and we'll get it out on the other stations too as soon as possible because I know that retreat's coming. What day is it again?
This one is January 13th through January 18th.
Perfect. So get on that scholarship page. The link is in the description below. I love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time and what you do.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.